Well, um, I'm indeed a bit sorry for, I'm indeed sorry for not coming to class early today. Um, had some hold-ups on the way. Thank you. I've listened to some of the feedbacks from the students and thanking God for the insight we already have concerning the topic we are considering today. I don't know, please, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we are we've done almost an hour, so we're going to do a few minutes, then we'll go on break and we'll deal with the major issues I want to talk about. So definition of the subject matter is cross-cultural communication are actually ways people from different cross-cultural backgrounds adjust to improve communication with one another. It's not just about us communicating to people from different cultural backgrounds. The essence of this course is to help us to learn how to adjust in our communication with people. Do you know that when an adult is speaking to a teenager, it's actually a cross-cultural communication? It's not only when people are coming from different backgrounds, when people have different orientation of understanding, it's also an aspect of cross-cultural communication. In short, one of the reasons why we have conflicts and war in our society today is misunderstanding, is when a communication is not understood in the clear terms of the communicator or the recipient. So it talks about how do we adjust our understanding of people's communication to improve our relationship. So when someone says, I'm communicating, it's actually a cross-cultural communication because you're actually taking an idea from you and you are pushing it to someone else. So it's actually crossing borders, mentality, perceptions, and mindset. So basically, it means that we have to spend a lot of time and energy on how to communicate cross-culturally. So there are so many importance or benefits we would derive from it. Number one, it is the step in creating successful work environments that brings out the best from team members. When people are working together as a team, if they don't, if they don't, if they don't, if they don't work this out, it's essential in preventing conflicts and resolving conflicts both from staff and plus. So it's a step in creating successful work environments that brings out the best from team members. Is essential in preventing conflicts and resolving conflicts both from staff and students. So when we're talking about cross-cultural communication, it actually means that we're talking about dealing with the issues of conflicts. And when you're talking about conflict, it's always related to misunderstanding. So how do we improve our cross-cultural communication skills? And basically, we look at embracing agility. And that means the inability or willingness to adapt to change is a common barrier to cross-cultural communication. It means that when you are unwilling to adapt to people's perception of communication, there will always be challenges in understanding, because everyone has basically the way of reasoning. So when somebody is receiving a kind of information, the person will always interpret it according to his previous understanding of either that subject matter or the um the the past situations that the person have actually experienced, either concerning that subject or concerning the person that is communicating. So that's why, for example, if you are conflict with someone, and the person meets you some other time, when the person is communicating, you will always want to interpret what the person is saying based on your last incident or your last encounter with the person. So for us to be able to have an effective communication time, it means that we must be able to embrace agility. That means you must be willing to adapt, to understand people intently. If not, it will be difficult for you to understand people from their perspective. Number two, we must be open-minded. Open-mindedness means don't jump into conclusions when people make statements. Don't assume you know what they intend to say, because oftentimes your perception will not always be correct. Sometimes it can be correct, but it's not true. It's 100% correct. So your perception can be high and very instinctively correct most times, but you must maintain an open mind. And that openness of mind is actually what you need to understand. That openness of mind is what helps you to receive information from people and get the right understanding or their frame of thought, why they were making a particular thought or points. Number three, and to facilitate meaningful conversation. So if you want to learn or improve your cross-cultural communication skill, you must be ready to engage in meaningful conversation. When we talk about meaningful conversation, we mean conversation that's actually geared towards a specific purpose. So it's not that every interaction is meaningful. Sometimes there are some interaction that are not having a direction or a goal. So you must understand that for you to be able to talk to people, engage them in a meaningful conversation, you should be ready to deal with the issue of open-mindedness, because that is where the foundation of communication begins. If you're not open-minded, then every other communication will be either misinterpreted or it will be miscommunicated. Number four, you also need to understand that we have to become aware of our prejudice. Our prejudice is what you have sentiment for. Some people have sentiments over some certain statements. All right. Just for example, presently in Nigeria, we just had a presidential election, and people have different opinions based on their political affiliation. So when somebody is making a statement that is positive concerning a particular political party, you discover that the person speaking will not be heard, because what the person is saying is speaking from his own personal perception. All right. And the person lost what he's saying about his or her candidate. But the person listening will actually not understand what you are saying. But the person will always be looking at the negative part of it. So these are some of the reasons why it's difficult for people to cross communicate effectively, because of prejudice, what they love to hear or what they don't have interest in. So when a subject is coming forth, then people are always not connected to it because it's not what they want to hear. So these are some of the challenges quite a number of persons will not want to deal with, because we always want to get it the easy way. So that's why it's important that we begin to check fundamentally our agility. So we must embrace that agility. We must ensure that we have this agility to adapt. And that's something that is crucial to us in situations like this. So going through to fundamental patterns of cultural difference. There are things we must understand about human beings. Number one, we must understand that there are different communication styles. People communication styles is based on their background. There are people who are aggressive communicators, and there are people who are soft, I would say soft communicator. I wouldn't say aggressive. They are soft communicator. They speak softly and calmly. So when people who are aggressive in communication listens to someone who speaks softly and calmly, they quickly interpret it as someone who is not bold. You know, they quickly jump into conclusion that this person is not bold, is not having the right complex of his or herself. So you must recognize that as a cross-cultural communicator, that people have different styles of communication. So one of the things we should do is to begin to learn how to understand people's style of communication. All right. For example, there are people who are authoritative in their communication. There are people who are instructional. They give instructions. Hey, John, do this for me. I remember a couple of years ago when I was in South Africa, it was a mission school, so we were engaged in a sport. You know, normally as adults, as we are playing soccer, children comes around the pitch to just watch and have fun. So I actually needed water. So when I walked to the side of the pitch, I saw a young child about 6, 7, 8 years. And I called the child. I said, please, please get me water to drink. And the child refused to go. So I was taken aback because in my culture, no matter how tired you are as a child, when an elderly person sends you a message, you just have to respond. And the child refused to go. So I was insisting, come on, go and get me water to drink. Until my friend, who has lived there for a while, said, oh, Jude, what you are doing is wrong. I said, why? I said, your style of communication is wrong. He picked the can of water from me and called the child and appealed to the child. I didn't even know what he said, but I know he said something that the child eventually took the can and got us water to drink. So there and then I understood that my style of communication was at variance with the way the parents or the people around that child communicates to that child. So when people communicate to you, so whether you are working together as a team, you first of all recognize their style of communication. But that will help you to give a proper judgment of the person's intention. All right. Then number two, different attitude towards conflict. So when you're working with people from different culture, whether as a teenager and youth, you must understand that the people's attitude towards conflict also varies. So because it varies, you should also recognize that it is not something you have control over at all. It's not something you can control. People's attitude, some people withdraw after conflict, while some express their grievance, while some are able to meticulously um, um, control conflicts, while some do not have control by it. So you must understand that conflict is not a problem. It's your attitude during conflict that matters. All right. So that people have conflict, trying to avoid conflict, like we have learned in team building, is not the best. Conflict is something that actually determines a teamwork. So, but one thing is sure, that if you are dealing with people from different cultural backgrounds, conflict is always an issue you will find around a teamwork. So, but one thing is sure, that people's response is always based on their cultural background. That's also something you must take note of. Then we also talk about different approach in completing task. So, because some of this communication we talk about, it's not just about talking. It has to do with about our attitude and our concept about work. All right. So some people's concept about work, like completing a task. Some people do a task little by little, while some rush their task. All right. So, but the most important thing that you understand the way people, their approach to completing a task, or their approach towards handling a task. So if you understand people's approach, then it will help you to communicate with them effectively. So it's very, very important that you recognize this difference. Then difference in decision-making styles. For example, in the context of Africa, when a team is sent to for a project, for example, and a question is asked in the context of Africa, basically, all right, the leader is expected to be the one responding. So in situations where you find a team where everyone can air their opinion, okay, let's say you have children and you took your children out and then you went to visit a family, and as you are there, they are asked, do we serve you dinner? All right. And the mom says no, and the child says, yes, I like to eat dinner. Often than not, we feel, oh, that child is not cultured, because the child ought not to go contrary to the mom's decision. So you can also realize that there are some people there are some group of people who in their culture, it's you have the right to express yourself. You have the right to express yourself. You can make your decision. So whatever decision you make, you are responsible for it. So you don't make decisions because of someone. You make decisions because of yourself. So these are some of the things that create problems in a relationship or in a teamwork. So when you understand these different approaches and decision-making styles, it will build you up in working with people from different backgrounds. Fifthly, different attitude towards disclosure. We talked about intrapersonal communication. We talked about people's attitude towards disclosure. Now, there are people who naturally can tell you so much about themselves, and there are people who find it difficult to tell you about themselves. So you may interpret your interpretation about people who are not prone to disclose things about themselves are people who are secretive, as people who are not genuine. Why someone who interprets or who speaks so much about himself can be seen as somebody who's loose. So you must begin to draw this into perspectives and looking at it from the contextual environment you find yourself. So when someone is expressive, don't be quick to jump into conclusion that this person is unreserved. All right, like some people say he's uncultured. No, it could just be that this person's culture encourages that kind of disclosure. Okay, naturally, women don't want to disclose their age. It has become a cultural thing. When you ask a woman her age, it's like an insult, especially when it's public. All right, but it's often than not male do not really care so much about it. So sometimes when you find people who don't do that, then as a cross-cultural communicator, you don't take it too seriously. You may just understand that this person has this challenge or has this orientation. definitely it may not be a challenge, but to use a challenge, but it could be that the person's orientation that you don't disclose yourself. There's a proverb or an adage in Africa, proverb that when a chicken gets to a community, it puts his leg down and the other one up. It doesn't put the two legs down. So just trying to observe. You understand? So these are some of the things that are very crucial when it comes to cross-cultural. And then finally, different approaches to knowing. All right. There are people who cannot ask directly. They don't ask directly. These people, they need something, but they don't go directly. Why there are people who wants to go direct? So we have the direct and the indirect approach. So these are some of the things that a lot of people do not want to take cognizance of. So when these things happens, they feel offended and it creates a lot of issues among relationship. So I'd like to take a break here and we'll come back in 10 minutes. So we'll continue from here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pastor Good, and thank you for listening. We are going to say it's 8:40 now.
Thank you, man. Okay. So from the first section, do we have any question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. My question is this: you talked about prejudice that is like a limitation to cross communication. So my question is: seems prejudice is one of a barrier to quality cross-cultural communication. Hello, sir.
I didn't get your question, man. Please, can you come again?
Thank you, sir. I said I jotted something about prejudice. My question is this: does it mean that prejudice is like a limitation, is like a barrier to cross-cultural communication?
Yeah. Yeah. What you are saying is prejudice a barrier to cross-cultural communication? Is that what you're asking, man?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's what I was.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, maybe we can say, how is prejudice a barrier to cross-cultural communication? Is that the question you want to get answers to?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how? Okay. Yes, there. Let me give an example. If I come from a culture, let's say from a culture where woman should not speak when a husband is present. Okay, you know, communication is both verbal and non-verbal. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when we talk
Yes, sir.
about cross-cultural communication, let us not always think about talking. It also has to do with our attitude, how we do things. So if I am coming from a culture where women should not speak when their husband is present, or if when their husband is available. So when the woman begins to speak while her husband is available, I will hardly want to take whatever she's saying, even though it's making sense. Hello. So I will always want to, okay, confirm from the husband to ascertain if whatever the woman is saying is something the husband approves. So at that point, it's a barrier. So I may not even listen to her, but I will listen to the husband. So what has happened? I have prejudice. What's my prejudice? Prejudice is when you have a special interest on a particular thing in the expense of others. So that can also be a barrier. Another thing way prejudice can hinder your cross-cultural communication is when you are, like we talk about giving, giving. Maybe today I will tell you the topic is tithing, and you already have prejudice that a Christian should not tithe. So you will not listen to me, you will not understand me because you have prejudice for that topic, tithing. So whatever I will say, you will not be able to understand me in the context of my speaking because you feel that most pastors who preach tithe are looking for money. So these are some of the ways that these things can hinder our cross-cultural communication. Hello, did you get me?
Yes.
Please, can you get? Is someone hearing me, please?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir, now.
Okay, is there any other question?
In aspect of, yes, sir, just one. In
Okay.
aspect of growing, you talked about people in disclosure, how some people express themselves. Some people don't like to verbally ask question direct. Some people will like direct. So my question now, as we are growing or we tend to, which is more preferable in keeping gentle or for your audience? Is asking question direct or indirect? Which one is more proper? Thank you, sir.
All right. Like this course, this particular course is meant to help us to adjust. So this course is meant to help us adjust to people's communication style. It's not basically to help us choose which is the best. Like we have been saying in communication, that the situation determines the best approach. So if, for example, you know that Jude likes direct communication, so which is the best approach to communicate with Jude? I'm asking the person that asked the question. What would be the best approach?
Thank you, sir. If I'm not mistaken, maybe direct question, sir.
Yes, it's direct. It's direct because you are a master communication person now. Now you study people. It's more like a psychological thing. That you know that Jude is a direct communication person, is a direct person. I want to communicate with Jude, I want to engage with Jude. I will be direct with him. So if Charity is someone who does not like direct communication, then the best approach is to go indirect. So we cannot say that this is the fight we have. This is the reason why there's so much rivalry when it comes to communication. Everyone wants to claim that this is the best and that is the best. So, but in reality, whatever style you choose could be the best for you. So how do I help myself? Is to adjust. So if I am a direct communication person and I know that the person I want to communicate with is an indirect. So what do? I become indirect. That doesn't mean I'm hypocritical. That doesn't mean I'm trying to deceive the person. No, I'm adjusting to the person's perception. And that's what it means to be ahead of your game. So, but people will insist and say, no, yeah, direct is the best. It does not matter. When that happens, it now becomes clear that you are not growing in your communication skills. So that's why you see one person who is able to relate to 10 people with different communication style. So such a person is referred to as a master communicator. So such a person is referred to as a master communicator. I don't know if you are getting it, ma.
Yes, sir. Very much, sir. Because I remember Paul in the Bible, he's used this method when he went to Gentile, he do like Gentile in order to get them and attract them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you. That's exactly a very appropriate scripture for the question. Yes. Said to the Jew, I became a Jew. To the Gentile, I became a Gentile. The purpose that I might win some. In our context, we can say for the purpose of creating understanding or for the purpose of connecting to my audience. So that's it. So you cannot be speaking to Nigerians and be speaking like somebody from Britain. That shows you don't even understand communication. You cannot be speaking to people from Britain and be speaking like somebody from one village in Nigeria. That means you don't know what you are doing. Because if you want them to hear you, yeah, you must speak what they understand. So you must improve yourself to speak like them for them to understand you. So your audience will be based on the people who understand you more. So that's where clarity is needed. So understanding that we are all involved in cross-cultural communication, then it means that we have to be more cautious and careful in our communication styles. Thank you. Please, any other question? Any other question?
I don't have questions, sir.
Okay, you seem to be the only one that is responding today. Okay. How many persons do we have in class? We have 3 persons in class today. Okay, let me hear the 2 other persons that are not spoken.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. You just greeted me. I mean, what's your response to the class teaching?
I'm still digesting, sir. Questions are coming. Thank you.
And the one you have digested, throw them out. Because if I add more to what you are still digesting, then it will be wasted. So it's better to stay around the one you are still chewing. If there's any conflict or misunderstanding, it's better you ask now, so that I don't add more.
No, for now I'm okay, sir. Thank you.
So what did you get from it?
That it's important to learn how to communicate, because everyone is different in a way. We have different cultures, we have different temperaments. So for us to just say, because this one,
From it. So what did we get from the first section?
sorry, sir? Should I continue?
Yes.
Okay. So for one to say, I cannot communicate because, or to judge somebody the way they talk or the way they communicate is wrong, because we are all different. So as somebody who has learned to communicate, who should be able to relate with different people, understanding that if I'm communicating with Pastor Jude because he likes direct, I should be able to adjust myself and learn how to be direct. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I didn't get you. What did you say?
We're not hearing you, sir.
Is Sister Faithful there?
I'm
Hello,
here,
Sister
sir.
Faithful.
I'm here, sir.
I didn't hear you. I said, what's your take so far?
Okay, it was Sister Precious that was talking before.
Okay. Okay. Let me
Sam,
hear you. What's your take? Are we at while we are waiting
Sam,
for her?
man will come tomorrow. I'm not just okay at all. I'll have to go and listen to this message again.
Okay. All right.
Thank
As
thank you, sir.
let's look at 4 communication style. Number 1, understanding that every person has their unique style of communication, oftentimes based on their background and temperament. So that's something we want to reemphasize. So we have active communicators, people who are very lively when they are speaking. Then we have aggressive. Then we have passive. Then we have assertive. The active communicators are communicators whose attitude in communication is so cognitive. What do I mean by that? There are people who, while they speak, all right, most of us, we call it anointing, but while they speak, they have this charm. They have this charm where they speak and their expressions are loud, all right, and not necessarily aggressive. So there are people whose communication style are like that. So when you meet such people, it tells you of the kind of approach to deal with them, to use in communicating with them, just like I told our sister before during the first question time. So the aggressive people are those whose style of communication are more like a military communication style, where which is instructional. Do what I say, and not 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 what you want. So obey the last commands kind of communication style, which oftentimes does not produce healthy communication. So why I said aggressive communication does not produce healthy communication is for us to understand that not one of us likes to be communicated to aggressively. No one of us will appreciate it. All right. Then we have the aggressive and passive. Now, this is a combination of both, which is needed based on the situation report. So when you are insisting on certain things, there are times you need to be aggressive so that the person you are speaking to will get the information rightly. That this is not an information that should be treated as keep in view. Some will tell you treat as urgent. So when you say passive, is that the person is not pushing. It's not pushing, but the person is aggressive. Like somebody is saying, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And the person doesn't consistently say it, but the person says it for a short while and the person forgets about the communication. But there are people who keep saying, do it, and the person continue to say that thing over and over again until that each situation or that communication is heard. So, but the assertive is the most appropriate way of communicating. To be assertive means to be certain of what you are saying and to be sure of what you are saying and to be consistent of what you are saying. To be assertive would mean to be certain of what you are saying, to be consistent in what you are saying, and to be sure without necessarily being loud. Now, when you become loud, people will see you as someone who's aggressive. So, but to be assertive, it's like if you watch the British film, and for those who now, these are some of the things that makes it different for the officers in Africa. These are some of the things that makes it difficult. Very aggressive, all right, because of the mentality kind of communication, because they believe that a man who has the backing of the governor or the backing of the government has authority over every other person. So it becomes aggressive. It becomes possessive. Becomes like someone who says, if you don't obey me, I will deal with you. And that's the difference. So even as a leader, we find it in some leadership, like trying to ensure that your decisions are must be accepted by your followers because the church or the organization have given you a leadership role. So as a leader, like our sister have asked, the most effective way to communicate with your team members is to be assertive without being aggressive. But if you are aggressive and passive, your communication will not also produce results. So it's important that you recognize that to be assertive is much more expected from you as a communicator and as a leader. And this is the reason why we mustn't just allow our words to fly around without us assessing or reviewing our communication style. Okay, so if you look through your own communication style, you can tell if you are an aggressive communicator. Some would say that, hey, that is who I am. That's my nature and all that. You see, when it comes to communication, we keep emphasizing it's not about your nature, it's not about your culture, it's not about you, it's about what you want to communicate and who you want to communicate to. So it's the who that actually determines if your communication style is appropriate for that season or for that hour. So this is how far we can go tonight. I don't know if we have questions, and I'll turn it over to Pastor Faith again. Thank you.
I have questions.